Welcome to our massive open online course about purchasing and supply management fundamentals. Today I want to talk about the definition and meaning of purchasing and supply management. Before that, I want to introduce to you the learning goals for the PSM fundamentals MOOC in total. You should be able to identify the basic role, benefits, processes and aspects of a PSM department in a variety of specific job roles. You should also be able to apply a range of purchasing techniques and tools to purchasing activities. Beyond that, the description of cross-functional connections between purchasing and other departments and departments' connections to external stakeholders is another learning goal. In addition, you should be able to identify opportunities and challenges when acting as the interface between internal customer requirements and external supply networks. The understanding of the impact of supplier relationship management on PSM performance and the application of collaboration tools is a set of other learning goals. Last but not least, you should be able to evaluate trends and developments in PSM and interpret their consequences. Today I want to create the base by the help of terms and definitions for procurement, purchasing and supply management. Following a definition of Arjan van Weele, one of the most reputed high-caliber professors in our field, procurement represents all the activities required in order to get the product from supplier to its final destination. Procurement holds a broader meaning than purchasing, as it accounts for strategic as well as operational activities. So purchasing is more the operative part, procurement is operative and strategic activities together. Supply management is a strategic approach to planning for and acquiring the organization's current and future needs through effectively managing the supply base. This is a definition of Monska and others. And the Institute of Supply Management, ISM, in the USA came up with a definition that said that the identification, acquisition, access, positioning and management of resources and related capabilities that an organization needs or potentially needs in the attainment of its strategic objectives. So supply management again is more the strategic side of procurement. For our needs, we relate to the PSM definition of van Weele, and we distinguish between the operative purchasing and the more strategic supply management. Supply management as well as purchasing are integrated elements of supply chain management or the management of a supply chain. A supply chain is a set of 3 or more organizations linked directly by one or more of the upstream or downstream flows of products, services, finances and information from a source to a customer. Supply chain management involves a broader perspective than PSM. Supply chain management is the part of the operations management discipline that examines 3 or more organizations involved in the upstream and downstream flows of products and services, finances and other information from a source to a customer. This is again a definition from Arjan van Weele and Eric van Rij. To me, very important is that supply chain management comprises PSM, logistics, production. Some of our colleagues also add after sales, but definitely again PSM is a very important but just one part of the overarching supply chain management discipline. And in addition, it's also important to note that supply chain management is not only dealing with the material and the information flows, but also with the financial flows along a supply chain. As said before, our project, our perfect project, refers to the term PSM, and we refer to the scope definition of Arjan van Weele. Nevertheless, we include a broader scope focusing on the full upstream network beyond Tier 1 level. So our definition for the project is as follows. Purchasing and supply management comprises the management of external inputs, materials, services, capabilities and knowledge that are required for building, running and maintaining the focal firm's processes, while simultaneously managing the external and internal stakeholder network with an extended upstream supply network understanding. Let me briefly talk also about the development of PSM in such a definition over the last decades. The supply function was recognized as an independent function by many railroad organizations well before 1900 already. During World War I and II, the success of a firm was limited by the ability to supply raw materials and services. In the 50s and 60s, the chief purchasing officer was elevated to the top manager status, but just in less companies. In most of the companies in these days, purchasing was still a more operative function interpreted by the internal customers as just order fulfillers for their needs. With the beginning of the 1970s, the prices began to rise, for example, driven by the oil embargo in 1973, and the importance of PSM increased. So not only the importance of the operative task, but also the importance of a strategic task that we translate with the term supply management. In the following years, more challenges like globalization, sustainability, risk management, and digitalization followed. And along these developments, the CPOs, so the chief purchasing officers, really made it more to the board level of companies than a couple of decades before. Nowadays, it's really clear that PSM has a strategic impact for a company. Nevertheless, it's a very interesting and challenging time while we enter the digital era. Today, the question is if purchasing and supply management is really able to become a driver of the digital transformation of a company. The potential is definitely there. Or if purchasing and supply management is rather going back the development steps where it came from in the 50s and 60s as an operative purchasing function. Before I add more details to the latest developments of PSM and give you a future outlook of the discipline in another sequence, I will come back to the definitions and will look a little bit closer at the process for PSM based on an interpretation again of Arjan van WEELE. We usually describe the process for PSM as demand and supply combination. The demand stems from the internal customers within a company that specify, select and contract their demand, supported in an ideal case by the PSM function. This is also something that we call the sourcing activities within the PSM process. After that, the goods and services have to be ordered, expedited and evaluated, and this is followed up by an evaluation finally by the suppliers, and this is the supply side of the whole process. Sourcing and supply together make the buying activities or are element of the purchasing function itself. The sourcing activity is more a strategic one. The supply activities are more operational related and stand for the ordering aspects of the purchasing function. The whole process from the internal customer to the supplier is comprising the procurement activities. The benefits of effective PSM are huge. That's the reason why people usually say the profit of a company stems from our function. These effects can be visualized by several means, for example by an EVA tree or by the visualization of the calculation of a return of asset for a company. We looked more in detail at a Heineken case where a 2% reduction in procurement costs led to an improvement in return on assets of up to 10%. The importance of PSM can also be reflected by purchased goods and services as a percentage of cost of goods sold in different industries. Many industries have a very low degree of value added. That means that most of their value add stems from their supply network. For example, retailers have such a percentage of cost of goods sold in the amount of 60 to 85%. Computers, consumer electronics and automotive have similar percentages when it comes to purchased goods and services as part of cost of goods sold. Nevertheless, we also have some industries like pharma and service industry where we still have a very high degree of value added. But in average, we can say up to 50% of the company's value creation stems from their supply network. In order to be able to manage such an impactful supplier network, it's very important that purchasing and supply management is not only taking care for the costs, but also is taking care for the current challenges that procurement is facing. Amongst others, risk management can be named as one of the modern approaches and developments. I will talk about risk management more in detail in one of the other sequences of this MOOC. But we also have to take into account the increased need to take care for reputation management, corporate social responsibility, and to become a customer of choice, not only for the end customers of a company, but in our PSM case, for the suppliers. Procurement should be willing to become a center of excellence within the company and should be also engaged more than in the past in stakeholder engagement. Let me add also the term innovation management here, because it's very important due to the many interfaces that purchasing and supply management has internally and externally, that PSM develops itself also to innovation management experts for a company. By the help of innovation management, PSM can identify and leverage the potential of the supply network for latest innovations that can be used in the company's further development and translated into future successes in return for a company. With this, I'm happy to round off this sequence of our MOOC, and thank you very much for your attention.